I think that door just sighed.
Ghastly, isn't it? All the doors in this spaceship have been programmed to have a cheerful and sunny disposition. Anyway, come on. I've been ordered to take you up to the bridge. Oh, please yourself. Here I am, brain the size of a planet, and they ask me to take you up to the bridge. Call that job satisfaction, because I don't. You can thank the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation for building robots with GPP.
What's GPP?
Genuine people personalities. I'm a personality prototype. You can tell, can't you?
Now, on the radio, most of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was like that. And I was a big fan of the radio series. But funnily enough, the medium which I liked it almost the best were the books. I know a lot of people are very down on the books. I thought the third book, Life, the Universe and Everything, which is the story of the Cricket Wars, which was originally drummed up, incidentally, as an episode for Doctor Who, as a series for Doctor Who, I thought was actually the best one. Now, one of the problems that they had attempting to put Hitchhikers up on the screen, and something that Douglas Adams himself apparently wrestled with when he was going through the various versions of the screenplay. He now receives a posthumous screenwriting and production credits. I mean, clearly it is still his baby. And according to the way it's been sold to us by the filmmakers, although there is another screenwriter on board, they have basically just done some fixes on what was essentially Douglas Adams' script. So what they want us to think, and it may be the case, is that this is essentially the thing that Adams came up with. But Adams himself worried that it might be unfilmable. And his problem was, as far as I know, that he was worried about whether that something that wordy, whether something that was that much based on diversions would actually translate into a 2-hour movie, or in this case, slightly less than 2 hours. And I have to say that I think it doesn't, for exactly the reasons that Adams was worried about. Now, firstly, on the positive side, Martin Freeman is great. It's a great bit of casting as Arthur Dent. As you know, I'd never seen The Office, but he's terrific. He's downbeat. He wears that dressing gown with shabby aplomb. He has exactly the right fed-up, long, dark tea time of the soul manner that Arthur Dent, or Dent Arthur Dent, as of course Slarty Bartfast refers to him, should have. Slarty Bartfast is played by Bill Nighy, again another brilliant bit of casting, because Bill Nighy was clearly born to play the role of the field fancying Slarty Bartfast, and he does that absolutely brilliantly. And of course Stephen Fry, who I said is a great narrator, does marvellously as the book. However, there is nothing like enough of the book. In the radio series, in the television series, the novels or the rest of it, the book would interrupt all the time. In fact, there would almost be entire episodes in which it was nothing but the book burbling.
Voiced by Peter Jones.
Yes, exactly. And you'd get these wonderful on-screen graphics that were very cronky, but they were very, very funny. And really, what you realised was that the narrative was never the point. I mean, the story of Hitchhiker's Guide, the story of the Cricket Wars, is the first moment that Hitchhiker's Guide actually really starts to hang together. But the first two, Hitchhiker's Guide, Restaurant at the End of the Universe, which I think there is a setup here for Restaurant at the End of the Universe to happen next, weren't really plot-driven. They were more driven by the fact that Arthur Dent, like Adams himself, was just constantly, drifted off into wondering about other things, like how to make a cup of tea. I mean, there's a wonderful moment in the original in which Eddie the shipboard computer crashes because Arthur has spent half an hour explaining to him how to make a cup of tea, and Eddie is attempting to get his head round this. You don't get any of that in the film. What you do get is truncated versions of all the lines that the old fans know. So the best example about it is this. When they arrive first on the Vogon battleship, or the Vogon destroyer, Arthur Dent gets a fish put into his ear, and the fish is the Babel fish. And this happens in the film. He gets a fish put into his ear, and the Babel fish translates all foreign languages into a language that Arthur Dent can explain. Now, in the movie, we get this, and it's explained that this is how people can understand each other in outer space. What we don't get is, in fact, the real punchline of that gag, which is that the Babel fish is then used by an author whose name now fails me, it's like Frühling, to prove the non-existence of God. And the argument is, God says, I refuse to prove myself because without faith I'm nothing. And then man says, but what about the Babel fish? I mean, that couldn't have happened by accident. It's a dead giveaway. Clearly, if there's such a thing as a Babel fish exists, it proves you exist, and therefore, by your own logic, you don't. Oops, says God, I hadn't thought of that, probably disappears in a puff of logic. That was easy, says man, who then goes on to prove that black is white and gets killed on a zebra crossing.
Do you know the whole book off by heart? But at this point we should move on? No,
but what I'm saying is, in a way, those sort of Rococo sort of wombles afterwards were the point. The point wasn't...
A Rococo womble?
Yeah, it's curly and it's ornamental and it's not the narrative, but it's the stuff around it. It's ornate. It's to do with the embroidering. And the devil is in the detail. for me, if you take that detail away, I'm just sitting there going, where's the gag about the guy using the Babelfish as the central argument for his best-selling book, Well, That Just About Wraps It Up for God? Where is all the stuff about Ford Prefect, who here is played by Mos Def, who I think, does the job as best he can. But fundamentally, it's a weird bit of casting. Obviously, from the audience's point of view, it's great because, that's fine. It theoretically opens up the American demographic. But the gag with Ford Prefect is meant to be that Arthur Dent thinks Ford Prefect comes from Guildford. And when Mos Def says, I don't really come from Guildford, you go, no, of course you don't. You're Mos Def. I mean, excuse me for figuring that out a little while ago. Nor do you get the explanation that Ford Prefect is called Ford Prefect because he skimped on his research and he thought it was a popular name that would nicely blend in, like Ford Anglia or Ford Capri, while we're on that subject. Now, what that does for me is it takes the heart out of the piece. However, I am very aware that people who had no preconceptions about Hitchhiker's Guide, who basically are the people who are going to go and see Star Wars, and what they're seeing is Star Wars with jokes, do enjoy it. And so it is entirely possible that Garth Jennings and Hammer and Tong's partnership have correctly identified the key audience for the film, which is hitchhiking virgins. But personally, I think if you're somebody who knew and loved and spent time with the book, the radio play, the towel, you are going to spend a lot of it going, and that's what I did. And that was a real problem for me. So for me, it doesn't work. I am fully willing to accept that there are others who will enjoy it. But I was left feeling a hole, wondering why me and the bowl of petunias had that strange feeling of, oh no, not again.